everyone. We'd like to welcome you to week number 3 of the R6 Collegiate Championship. My name is Sticula. I'm joined here by Chief, and we've got a good one coming up tonight. Kennesaw State versus the University of Oklahoma. But Chief, we do have one thing to get to before we dive into this match.
And before we can prepare for week number 3, Reese, let's step back in time and review week number 2.
Week 2 of the Rainbow Six Siege Collegiate Championship has come and gone, and it's time to recap what happened. First up, power rankings. Most of the rankings stayed the same this week, with North Carolina State University retaining their spot at the top. University of Akron rose to 4th, dropping University of Alabama Huntsville to their spot in 5th. Now for interesting results from this week. In the West, there was a showdown of UCs, with UCSB taking the victory over UCD. And in the South, in a surprising result, UTSA lost to OU Crimson. And now, the matches to watch out for in Week 3. In Central, Akron versus Illinois State. For the South, Louisiana versus UT Austin. UNCC versus RIT in the East. And in the West, Tulsa versus SJSU. And that's what you missed in Week 2. Stay tuned to see how the Rainbow Six Siege Collegiate Championship shakes out.
As we start to enter into week number 3, it's Oklahoma and KSU coming off wins in week number 1 and week number 2. It was KSU taking down Dallas in week number 1, and then Austin in week number 2. On the side of Oklahoma, it was Tennessee Tech, and then it was the Roadrunners falling to Oklahoma in week 1 and 2, respectively.
Yeah, it's actually that Roadrunners victory that I do want to talk a little bit about. That's a pretty solid victory. UTD, the Comets, have had kind of an okay performance. I think they're one of the better open teams, maybe not quite the level of Premier or on the brink of Premier, but UTSA, the Roadrunners have been around for a really long time, and they're a school that has attracted a lot of acclaim, and despite the fact they aren't currently at what we call the Premier level of play, I think it's fair to say that a victory there for Oklahoma helps you get some confidence coming into week number 3, and for both of these schools to be undefeated so far, looking like a solid run this season is in the making.
Sadly, one of our team's runs of being flawless is going to end today. Let's bring up the KSU roster and see who's going to be representing this university today, and I might have some bias in this. It's going to be Sargent, Soviet Pie, Top-Notch Gamer, Mine Hayden, an old teammate of mine, and Winter rounding out the KSU team.
It's nice to have somebody that you've played with before on a roster. I always love that feeling, casting former teammates, former players that I've been, organized with and have talked to behind the scenes. So it's cool to know that you were there with Mine Hayden. Before this, we'll take a look at the other roster for the Oklahoma side. And I think it's fair to say that OU, the Sooners, are probably the favorite coming into this series. If you were present at the LAN that we had in South Bend, you probably saw their performance and got a good picture into what they might have coming forward. The position of Oklahoma is kind of in a weird spot because they aren't technically Premier anymore if you're going by the main league they play in, Collegiate R6. They dropped down. They were set to be auto-relegated, but they were saved by the wildcard relegation tournament currently going on in CR6. But for the roster's sake, there's Zave, Blizzy, Toe, Turks, and Games. Turks is a great fundamental player. I love the way that he thinks about Siege, and I'm excited to see how he can perform against KSU tonight.
So we've paved the story that Oklahoma is, the team coming in from a Premier, from a different collegiate, and it's KSU has the burden of being the underdog today. And let's see where that story takes us when we bring up our best of 3. It's going to be 3 maps that our teams are going to be playing on, and is it going to be the Collegiate Special, Reese, or are we going to find some little bit of spicy bits in our map bands? And it's going to start off very spicy. French Alps, we go to Chalet.
That's a nice one there. You do get Oregon and Cafe, some maps with some maybe more fundamentals there as second and third, respectively. But coming out of the first, I think Kennesaw banning Bank kind of does give you a bit of info about this team. Maybe not the roster that's scrimming quite as much as NCSU to incorporate a map like Bank. Usually the newer maps, the teams that aren't as practiced, aren't, constantly scrimming it out, are a little slow to incorporate the newest map.
I will say Chalet and Bank probably parallel each other better than certain maps in the pool, like Oregon and Clubhouse, if you will, which is very funny. I describe, Chalet and Bank as being almost sister maps, if you will, Clubhouse and Oregon being sister maps, and both teams decided that they didn't want to play there. They have a specialty, but let's actually start to enter into this best of 3 series. Over to Chalet we go. Now, I'm curious to see what meta we're going to be seeing because, again, SI has kind of completely destroyed anything that we thought about Chalet. I mean, there's a time where we saw, Basement being the absolute worst bomb site, not just here on Chalet, but almost the entire 7 map pool. And now in SI, it is one of the best bomb sites. So maybe our collegiate teams are going to be taking great notes of all of the professional players that have been playing over the past week and sprinkling some new strategy.
And if you're watching the little Friday night lights yesterday that we had for the CR6 Grand Finals, you'll remember that Chalet game was actually pretty favored for the defense. They were rocking out on Chalet. I'm curious to see if that trend does continue towards the point that you mentioned there. And I think coming into this series, it's an important game for KENNESAW in proving that they can be a premier level team. That's the point that we're going to be hitting on all night because it's the main determiner of, how seriously people take your school. Because if you make it to that top level of collegiate as compared to open, it really helps separate you. And just because of the higher level of competition you do get in that higher league, there's more opportunities to improve. There's more opportunities to face opponents who are going to throw challenges in your face. And I certainly think that Oklahoma could come up with some challenges here on the French map of Chalet.
One of those challenges is going to be the lack of Flores in play, currently found themselves being banned. And one of the strengths of Chalet is those defender bits of utility, the deployable shields coupled with the ADSs with My Pancakes and Rooney Gates. I mean, these fixed positions become almost practically impossible to break down. You have to expend a plethora of utility, flashbangs, grenades, gone 6 to deal with that utility. Flores was one of the best operators. He could just drive that roly-poly RCXD drone to the deployable shield, detonate it, and that fancy arsenal of utility would just completely dissolve. With Flores now being banned, the burden the attacking team is going to be, well, I have to deal with this deployable utility. I have to deal with this utility. If I don't, I won't be able to win this round.
Yeah, and I'm afraid to say, Chief, I've caught a lot of casts recently where I've seemed to get the teams that are a little bit less coordinated with their utility, sometimes perhaps forgetting about it altogether, and I don't think that's going to be what we have on the cards tonight. One little note about Oklahoma, the coaching staff for OU is actually probably one of the best in the country. And for a team that is lingering on that sort of position near our consistent top 25 performers, they have the building blocks, they have the support staff that allows you to consistently come in on game day and perform to the level that you want to. We started off here on Master Bedroom, first in the rotation. It's curious that we go here. I think a lot of people are starting to consider this topmost objective to be a little later in the rotation against the more popular sites such as Dining Kitchen and Barn Gaming.
I definitely echo that. I feel like this bomb site is just kind of awkward to hold. I will say KENNESAW has kind of an ace up their sleeve. If we go over to Piano, it's a Goyo shield with 3 ADSs. I mean, that's going to be a fixed fighting position that KENNESAW is going to try to hold for as long as possible. You also couple in the Rooney Gates, the head level holes, and the bulletproof camera. So KENNESAW has designed an entire defending strategy to prevent Oklahoma from pushing the southwest side of the map. However, one of the reasons why this bomb site has kind of fallen out of favor, at least at the T1 level, is the fact that teams respect the Piano hold so much, they go for a completely different push all the way through the solar windows, and you can see Oklahoma actually gearing up the attack right now.
One thing I'd like to mention here as well as Mine Hayden goes down as the first death there inside Trophy Room, is you can tell by that little prefix at the end of Turks' name, .neve or Nave. Turks is actually one of the players that we have in Collegiate, a population kind of growing of players who are active in both the collegiate sense, but also playing on an amateur roster as well. I saw the team announcement for Turks' team coming out just a couple weeks past, and so far, Oklahoma coming off on a raucous success. Both your Malusi and your Goyo have perished.
Ooh, a bad start for KENNESAW. There's still avenues for them to kind of rope this back. You still have the utility, the Nitrocell, that might be able to deter the Oklahoma push, but since Oklahoma's leveraging those windows, those Nitrocells won't really have the impact as designed. It's not going to stop Top Notch to dispatch it down range, but shot in midair. Winter's going to fall, and I think Oklahoma has almost sealed the deal for this round. Toe is just missing some of those LMG rounds and allowing Top Notch to relocate. But during that process, Reese, the diffuser is starting to go down. A little bit of challenge from a 416 carbine, but that's still not going to be enough to deny that diffuser in Oklahoma a flawless round to start things off here in week number 3.
What a route coming through from the Solarium Execute. Oklahoma took no prisoners, allowed no mistakes to creep forward, and eventually just flat out eliminate the remaining members from KSU. That's a good look there for that first attack. And KENNESAW, I like what they tried to do. They incorporated a great element towards stopping that Solarium push, having a player extended below inside of that trophy area. Unfortunately for them, KENNESAW just weren't quite prepared for the massive weight of pressure that Oklahoma unloaded on the trophy room, and it could be thought that maybe on the reattempt there, KENNESAW trying to bunker down a little more. What do you think that would look like if you're trying to add even more support to a trophy room extension that already collapsed in the first round?
I don't know if I'd add more support over the trophy. The only way I would do so is by having maybe an extra defender there just so you can get the trade, right? My Haydn gets kind of smoked through the trophy window, and everybody from KENNESAW is basically like arm's length transaction away. There's nowhere nearby. So one correction you do is maybe you have Mine Haydn play over into kitchen, and then one more player maybe playing by the solar stairs. That way you can kind of have this like two-pronged gunfight over by the window.
Right, you know, having that duo ship, always important on our roamers, big point that we talk about constantly, and you need to be able to work together. Collegiate teams sometimes do sort of struggle with the aspect of having tradability, being able to work off of your teammate and understanding your positions, respecting the distance, that separation that you need to keep with the offense, but also knowing, hey, we can't give up too much ground, we don't want to give this away entirely. So now down to this objective, over for our basement hold with a little bulletproof camera sent up as well. I'm liking the likes of this so far, and for KENNESAW, playing some roams early, giving a good look at the rotation. It's always what you're kind of hoping for, really, on Villa. Chalet.
Well, we're alluding to kind of the new age meta for Chalet being derived from what's currently taking place at the Siege Invitational, and it has been these grandiose, these large-scale roams here on the defense, where you don't just defend downstairs in the basement, you defend basically the entire map. Mine Haydn, bud,
Okay.
where are you going? There's a drone down there. There's members of Oklahoma lurking down there. Mine Haydn finds themselves being the opening death once again. And going back to the question you're asking me earlier, how does KENNESAW, well, change up their strategy? It's by playing together and working together as a team, guaranteeing trades.
Yeah, not only a back-to-back opening death, but also just in the same area as well. Something about the Malusi being in the trophy room causing her to be the opening casualty. Oklahoma, now that they've gotten one away, are going to go ahead and drop a Selma to create the head sight line over towards the top of this blue stairs position. The next goal, of course, is to deploy all of that utility. Despite the fact that the Flores is gone here, still looks like OU have maintained their composure. The grenades come on through, and one nearly takes out Winner. In fact, it's good for the kill, as the Aruni quite didn't know where to move. Top-notch gamer is there on the trade. Will it be enough as KENNESAW's hold upstairs, taking a major blow early?
How do you come back from this? It's a difficult thing to do. Your utility is starting to break down. Those Goyo shields have detonated, and Soviet Pie too aggressive. Again, that's that foothold upstairs in library that is just being dismantled one by Oklahoma. And this is the calm before the storm. Oklahoma is going to take this next 20 seconds or so to gather information. Now, Toe apparently doesn't want to participate in that, and they're going to be the burden of a few bullets this side, but it's now just Sergeant left and a 1v4. Some low HP in the side of Oklahoma, but I don't think this 416 Carbine's going to be able to drop that HP much lower.
Yeah, it's still going to be very complicated for the Jaeger to play out here. Could have an opening onto Toe as Jaeger creeps up and does eliminate the Zofia. Here's an additional area of pressure. The sledge coming down. And there goes your Jaeger as Oklahoma tied together two offensive pickups off the back of really strong fundamentals. OU are not getting out of their pacing. They know exactly how they want to deploy here on Chalet.
I mean, it's coming down that KSU just seems to be making these very individual plays. Sad to say it, but Mine Haydn has been opening death twice, and then a trade, or not a trade, but Oklahoma finds an additional kill, also from a nade, 2 rounds in a row. I mean, it's KENNESAW really playing as individuals, and it's Oklahoma playing together as kind of just this one entity, all 5 players doing exactly what their role says, and they're pushing, taking map control flawlessly.
Yeah, and that's a really scary thing to see against a defense, because it almost makes you wonder, you know, all of this hold, all of what we're prompting them with on our roams, is just getting swept past. And God, that's, you know, there's nothing more fearful than to have your entire strategy almost gotten rid of without much of a fuss. And I think KENNESAW are going to have to keep this in mind. Obviously, first map in a best of 3. It's going to get better, but it's going to take some time, right, to call those audibles and to make the difference in terms of how everybody is working together team play-wise.
We go over to the tertiary bomb site in rotation, and Chalet is actually KSU's map. So, great start, though, from Oklahoma. This is kind of like the mulligan, though, for KSU. They fall. They tripped up their knees, banged it up just a bit, but this is their opportunity to start to come back, maybe mix up their bomb site rotation. With that being said, though, we're seeing kind of a very similar defense to what was brought out back on Master, and for good reason for that, Reese, because it's almost a copy and paste, right? You're going to be holding upstairs to deny Oklahoma that vertical, because vertical is going to be absolutely critical. That sledgehammer, if it was, which is in the lineup, could completely rip apart that floorboards. And good news, Reese, Mind Hayden is not the opening death, but actually the one dishing out the opening kill.
Well, it's good for him to get the opener as well. There helps to deal with that entry differential statistic that we as casters really look at to tell you who's in control of the game. That, as well as the amount of times that the opening kill ends up with a refrag prompted by the team on the bad end of that entry battle. So far, Oklahoma do not have that. A pretty key change from the normal that we've had here, and, well, there it goes, as now the Mozzie's eliminated, and a problem, now you've got a defender stuck inside of this main breach area without really an ability to fall back. I'm imagining a grenade coming in the future of this player close to that main wall.
Oh, man, that's a stressful position to be in. Honestly, I would just crawl on my stomach and try to get out of there. Selma charges are going to open up that wall, and Winter is going to be forced to hightail it out of there. A critical mistake, though, Reese, as you're alluding to. I mean, Winter was kind of dead in that spot. There was no business for them to leave that position, but an error made by Oklahoma, and, well, it's going to start to compound now as Oklahoma finds themselves, again, being burdened by a death of their roster members. That's going to be 2 sets of grenades off the board for Oklahoma, but good news if you're a fan of that team. You still have 1 more set because they brought out 3.
Right, and there's not a terrible amount of bulletproof utility. Realistically, just the deployable shield plus the bulletproof camera as well there. So not anything to go crazy over. The more pressing issue, Oklahoma facing, oh, just a vicious extension up above, not able to fully clear it out until just about now. But the thing is, it's office control that really matters upstairs. It doesn't matter if you've got, control of master or the bathroom. As long as you deny defenders being here in the office, that's all that matters, and it's because of the vertical play. Realistically, a dining plant is always the end game here for any offensive team. There are 40 seconds in order to make that dining play happen, but in a man disadvantage with a C4 from Top Notch Gamer plus 2 Toxic Babes, it's looking a little dicey here.
You, in theory, could rotate those flat plays breaching charges above to get some vertical angles. I mean, you can find where Sarge is playing as well as that smoke. But again, time is not on your side, and Top Notch is going to be able to actually capitalize on the lull from the Oklahoma attack. Finding another member of the offense is going to make this much more difficult. They're going to look to go for a solar take, and Top Notch is happy to greet that push. Another one for their name, 3 in this round, and games left to deal with 3 defenders of KSU, and 2 seconds left. Toxic gas grenade in their face, and this is definitely not going to be a winnable round. Finally, KSU stops the bleeding.
Top Notch Gamer really finding a groove in that round. Important for KENNESAW to get him involved, to have him be sort of proliferating the roam and stepping up as a key pillar. That was absent for the first 2 rounds because Mind Hayden hadn't really been getting a huge substantial impact. He was involved with the opening death, but it was like a 1 kill or 1 death scenario, never seeing a multi-kill or any kind of serious pressure stopped by the Malusi player. Now that you've got involvement from Top Notch Gamer, maybe that prompts Winter or Soviet Pie to kind of get something going as well there, because one player stepping up, it's not always about the individual impact, it's the comfortability that it adds to the rest of the team to say, we've been here in scrims, we know how this works out, and now that one player is starting to fit that puzzle piece in, the rest of the roster can follow suit and get back to what they were expecting here on Chalet.
Did you notice the 6-pick away from the sledge into the buck? I mean, that's a new puzzle piece for Oklahoma. And if I were to hypothesize the use of that buck, it's going to be to go underneath, in through dining room, in through kitchen, and kind of reverse engineer the vertical play. So you're going to be using that skeleton key to soften up the defending positions. And if there's a deployable shield or a place where a KSU member is comfortably sitting, vibing, and just enjoying the lovely snowy weather here in the French Alps, well, there's going to be a skeleton key to kind of break that party. And here's another interesting change on the side of KSU, a bulletproof camera to start looking towards the east, which is going to be that trophy window. Because if Oklahoma goes with what they've been doing in the past, just kind of pushing that window, at least KSU will have some information in that play.
Right, you kind of have to establish some of those rhythms and find out, the way that the opponent wants to play. 2 attacking pickups so far for Oklahoma isn't the worst in the world, especially when KENNESAW have just sort of figured out the solution to how we stop the very, not necessarily stodgy, but, Oklahoma have played with a lot of structure those first 2 rounds and were kind of just moving along with sort of this checklist here. And so for Chalet, which has a great many opportunities for the attack to kind of get into that sort of playbook style siege, as a defender, it's your job to kind of upset that, and Top Notch Gamer, he sure will. A massive bout of damage onto Zave, who now has served a bit of a warning that playing big window is not such a safe position.
Interesting that the buck is in the big window. It seems like you're not going to be able to leverage enough of that skeleton key in that position. I guess you could use those flashbangs maybe to kind of soften up KSU, but it's a curious decision to be had, and it's not going to be really effective right now as Oklahoma's establishing their map control. It will be in about 30 seconds, though, when Oklahoma's knocking the threshold of piano, because it might be Soviet Pie feeling that, well, push on forward, so they might be, prone to kind of walk backwards into that long-range crossfire. It has been broken, though. Zave has now fallen. It's going to allow Mind Hidden to cover the back of Soviet Pie, so now you have 2 members of the KSU defense holding wanting angle. It's an opportunity for Oklahoma to potentially rotate away.
So that sort of stalemate that had been developing will now dissipate, and Zave disappears from the big window coverage. Lizzie on the trade game, though, and here comes a grenade from Turks. Oh, the mute backs up right on target, somehow survives. Top Notch Gamer has got some kind of explosive resistant boots on right now, and Sergeant stepping up for his roster as Games having some difficulty getting shots on target over towards his piano position. Of course, a deployable shield, that 1.5x optic, it's such a lethal combo.
It was a slow start for KSU, but they're starting to rope things back on forward, and the stall of Oklahoma has not helped them one bit. Again, they're still knocking the threshold of this bomb site, but they're going to have to start to deal with the utility, deal with Soviet Pie's deployable shield. In previous rounds, we saw that KSU had multiple sets of ADS in this position, and with your flashbangs off the board, dealing with that fixed fighting position is going to be very hard, but if Top Notch is willing to kind of take those haphazard gunfights, it might be more doable.
Oh no, the first grenade misses and the second absorbed by the ADS. Things are going terribly here for Oklahoma, and they're going to have to just muster past this fighting position. Turks will send in a nade, again captured by ADS as Blizzy goes down. Lucky for Turks, he wins the battle on the entrance, 1v2, not impossible, but the LMG wielder will be eviscerated by Sergeant from Art, and KENNESAW now tie the score.
We spent a lot of time talking about the buck and the use of the skeleton keys. I think one thing that we kind of missed was the use of those flashbangs. Now, important it's going to be to that round, because if you put buck on big window, he's technically just a flank launch, just cutting the bomb site in half, and you can see what that does to the Oklahoma offense. Those flashbangs were needed elsewhere, particularly over in piano, because there were a Runegate, a single Runegate, 3 ADSs, and a few Wamai pancakes. That is a lot of utility in one position. You got 3 flashbangs, so that's going to be good enough for the ADSs or the 2 Wamai pancakes and a Runegate, but then you still have other bits of utility that you have to deal with. So you use your stun grenade launcher, the Zofia Lifeline. That still leaves 1 catch denial gadget left. You have to start to burn nades, but with the buck out basically in Narnia, you don't have that order of operations. You don't have the ability to break down piano, and you can see what it caused the Oklahoma offense. They just got stuck in a position and they weren't able to break it down.
And let me give you an idea here. Is the buck really needed on that sort of flank coverage position at the big window at such an early period of the round?
No, I don't think so. Unless you're trying to get one of those, like, cheap sucker shot kind of kills. But, again, it's going to be kind of atypical if that happens.
Yeah, I think the Bucks certainly, the utility question there, you are right on the money. He needed to rotate, he needed to support the team, and I mentioned the point about the coaching staff element there for Oklahoma. I imagine their coach, Rush, after this game closes up, he might be doing a couple of drills on the utility burn because Oklahoma certainly needed it right there. And now that they missed those grenades, they allow KENNESAW to creep back in and kind of define the way that KSU-style siege looks like here on the Chalet map. But a third round in a row. Is it possible from KSU? Could certainly be. Oklahoma now with a couple of lessons learned on Dining and Master respectively, looking to strike back against a familiar sight for them, the gaming extension up above.
KSU is still setting up their map control. I mean, Winter just moments ago was using the Thunder Punch ability of Aruni to make extra rotations in the top portion of the map, and, well, there's a player on the other side of that green barricade. It was almost lethal, just like this gunfight between Meinheiden and a beautiful shot. And the lacking of drones of Oklahoma, it seems like they had such a great start, but now they're just committing errors, whether or not it's utility errors or droning errors, and putting KSU in a position to not only be able to come back, but potentially take the lead.
And I think Turks' silence through these 3 rounds is kind of showing you one element that is missing from Oklahoma. He was active in the first 2. Now he's had a couple moments where it seems like he's not really getting the impact that the rest of the roster needs him to. Turks can be an enabler. He can really prompt something to happen, something to change on the field. Here comes the utility burn once more. You have to be so careful with that grenade. And again, it'll kill the player at top blue. That's twice now that the extended player behind this shield will not be able to fall back. Top Notch Gamer is ready to fill the void. However, he looks away at the wrong time. Toe able to move forward, but the Zofia not so eager to continue contesting this. Now she knows for certain there is somebody here at this shield.
You know, we're in a predicament right now. Sure, the grenade found a kill, but the grenade was kind of designed to deal with the utility. The utility is, well, still there. All the ADS with my pancakes and the deployable shield is still existing, and a new player has filled the shoes of the dead KSU member. So if you use this grenade, it's just going to get my pancake, and you're kind of back at square one as Zave falls. So great job at the opening kill, but unfortunately hasn't broken down the defending setup, and Oklahoma now kind of like, scramble moment as they find themselves a 2v4 with not a lot of time left on the clock.
Yeah, this is pretty near impossible with Toe on terribly low HP. Toe has not managed to find even a single kill so far, has been pretty inactive across the board. Utility causing so many issues for Oklahoma. See what they can muster up. Z-Ping looks like on the player over by Dining. That'll tell them only 3 defenders active on the site. The problem is the Mozzie almost entirely denies them from making any kind of bar push. Here comes the Mozzie. Games was ready for it. Somehow they have not yet killed this player, to which they have full intel. Toe has gone down, of course, because he's on terribly low HP, and the Ace won't ever make it down the stairs, as that does mark 3 in a row for the team in KENNESAW.
That must be an incredibly frustrating round for Oklahoma, because they did a great job of dealing with the player behind the deployable shield. I mean, their utility burn to turn off those ADSs with my pancakes and the Aruni gate to get the grenade behind the player in library is incredible and very difficult to do. It's just very unfortunate that the shrapnel propagation only removed the player and not the deployable shield, because if that shield fell, I'm going to be blunt. I think Oklahoma actually wins that round, because that was probably the best utility usage that we've seen in a while in Collegiate.
Certainly worrying for me that Oklahoma, the first 2 rounds, pretty default looking. Something happened in round number 3. I don't know if it was, Meinheiden. He finally got off of that streak of opening deaths and he started to open up on the opponents. But Oklahoma have kind of lost their composure a little bit. The utility burn, to have it go wrong so many times. Usually the thing that I'll say about the util burn is, unless there's a defender that's like actively challenging you and complicating things, the util burn should go down no problem. And we see it there. It just doesn't work. And the fact that they don't put any pressure on the mezzanine player as well is kind of surprising to me. I want your take on this. The positioning there from Oklahoma, doesn't it seem a little cramped for them to have everyone nearly focused on trying to get rid of that shield top blue?
I mean, I would have had at least 2 players over in library just to have a crossfire and also challenge the fireplace pillar, right? Because that player is also participating in the utility denial of the library shield because they can actively swing, and if you have a grenade in your hand and you get swung by a different shield, bad day to be in, because that hot grenade is going to blow up your teammates too.
Yeah, that could be out of hand in an instant. So on to the final round of the first half. It'll be dining another look at this bomb site, the one where we started off the, not really a comeback, but, you know, the return to form for Kennesaw State. And the problem last time here was really just a sloppy top clear. Top-notch gamer, he's getting a little ahead of himself there. He had a couple good rounds, but he now allows Toe to get started. The first kill for the Zofia inside of this series. Soviet Pie looking to perhaps trade it out through the vertical. Toe doesn't seem to be paying terribly too much attention to this vert play below. He's more got his eyes over towards what could be a person sneaking back inside of master bedroom. Surely Winter gets the idea, rotates down Solar rather than trying to tempt this. However, I still feel like Soviet Pie could possibly get an entry frag here on returning the Zofia, or at least keeping her out of office.
Zofia holding that passive angle. Where are the drones? I mean, Oklahoma found a kill already off the drones, but you need to kind of spur Zoe into the map, leverage the use of those flat place charges, as well as a sledgehammer. And an interesting fact so far, out of every single round, the team that's found the opening kill has been the roster that has been able to win. So the use of Winter's Nitro Cell there is trying to hopefully break that. So KSU can find themselves at a 4-2 split instead of a 3-3 split.
Yeah, you would rather take the equal half here, or if from the Kennesaw perspective, get some advantages out of this one. 70 seconds remain. You can hear the hatch get opened up by a Selma. Oklahoma forming up for your typical execute, the one that they tried last time just to force it in from the main lobby. Nothing wrong with that. Toe applying a bit of pressure. I almost wonder if Toe might creep down Solar stairs because it's already a man disadvantage, right? Kennesaw don't have the manpower to monitor this backstairs position. Toe started on the stairs, will instead now transition to the vertical, and looky there, has the headshot against the Lamai. Things are about to get real ugly inside this bomb site, but Oklahoma, look at their demeanor. Look at the way that they play with so much passivity, knowing that they have the advantage, don't need to spoil it, don't need to hurry up, have everybody get in position and prepare and execute with some discipline here, rather than letting it get out of control. Soviet Pie, try as he might, still having trouble delaying this push forward, and Winter are able to pick off one player down on the case here. If Soviet Pie could just pick off one, he might be able to make this happen. Oh no, but Soviet Pie and Potatoes allows games to pop up to get the kill, marking a third for the Valkyrie. 1v2 territory is just looking so impossible though.
No Nitro Cell to Winter's names. You're going to have to win these gunfights with the MPX. That's going to be practically impossible to do, Reese, though. Look at the positioning of Oklahoma State attackers. They have fanned out and created this lovely 180-degree crossfire. So you're going to have to be able to break this down with 20 seconds. And the attackers of Oklahoma, they're just kind of teasing Winter right now. They're shooting a few rounds and then going back to their hiding place. So Winter in response is going to hit the diffuser, but the members of Oklahoma, the ones that are left alive, crash back into the bomb site. That's Oklahoma tying the half 3-3.
And it really comes down to the discipline. Oklahoma played way different in that last round to close the half, and so we'll tie it up. We'll go to their defense next. And Kennesaw, you know, I think they were on the opposite end of the discipline spectrum a little bit there. The mute was very aggressive. It's not terribly common for that extension strategy to actually have somebody proper sit inside of the office. And the thing is, it's because there's not a lot of cover available. And if you extend a deployable shield there too, the chance that the player outright will just die and the deployable shield will be wasted is pretty high. I think you'd be better off by having your deployable on that piano position as well, and maybe just trading top-notch gamer out to a different area because he didn't get anything done. He realistically didn't waste any utility or stop any progress, and eventually he gave away the opening, kill over to Oklahoma. And you mentioned the point. Opening kill teams have so far converted the rounds this game.
So it's time for Oklahoma to either completely break that or continue down the path where they're just going to be removing the Kennesaw State offense. We're going to be seeing Bar for the first round of the Oklahoma defense, and it looks very similar to what KSU is bringing out. We're going to see that deployable shield returning back over to Library in a slightly different position, a little bit further forward, and instead of the 3 ADSs in that position, only 2 of them and no will my pancakes in the position. So it's a slight change for Oklahoma, and the thing that KSU can do here is a quick drone, realize that, hey, there's only 2 bits of ADSs, just kind of overwhelming. We could use our stun grenade launcher to deal with that, and then a fast jiggle peek with a nade, and you'll be good as gold.
Jiggle peek with the grenade. Interesting.
You know, that fast lead, you know, that shoulder peek where you could throw...
Shoulder peek, right. Yeah. Oh, okay. All right. So much for Toe getting started.
On console.
They don't. Hey, mate, you can Shiko peek, but jiggle peeking, because you can't lean on ADS, so you don't really do that.
That's true.
Right.
I guess you could do it with a grenade or something. You can jiggle peek on console with like a smoke grenade because you can free lean with it.
Can you?
Yeah, you can hold a smoke grenade and back and forth. You know. With that being said, I think let's go back to our round just a bit because, well, we find 2 players off the board. Oklahoma has done a decent job defending their keep, but they have to continue going on forward. We talked about a critical operator in the KSU lineup. That was going to be the Zofia Lifeline, currently unavailable. So what are you going to do to burn this pesky ADS? You got 3 flashbangs, and that's all you have. So you got to use the flashbangs on the ADS as well as the Rooney Gate. That gives you 0 margin for error. You have to execute perfectly with 10 seconds. Unless those ADSs reset, you're going to be kind of in a terrible position.
Yeah, that's certainly something to worry about. The utility can quickly go away. Soviet Pi, though, in a different note, we don't get a lot of Ashe now. She's really not so much of a meta operator anymore. But having the breaching rounds as sort of a substitute there to replace the lost grenades or even, ranged grenades out of the lifeline from Sargent always going to be a little extra help. And, maybe Oklahoma could have dealt with that. They certainly had some issues with utility earlier in the match. Lizzie on the Legion, we haven't really gotten much time to talk about this. Legion certainly in the same realm of Ashe and Operator, once having a ton of popularity, now not so much.
Well, there's that Ashe round, dealing with a deployable shield. Now, Zave hasn't been deterred, though. Sure, their shield's off the board, and Soviet Pi decides that they want to crush the W shift key. That's going to result in their death. At least Heiden's able to kind of rectify that mistake, bringing us back to equal ground 3-3. But where are the vertical pressures coming in from KSU? It hasn't yet been established. Why? Because Oklahoma still has a rat in a corner. Heiden not checking those corners ends up falling. And now that's Oklahoma recalling that roamer, but it's put KSU in a very awkward position.
And there's one of those moments that you sort of needed for Turks to make a play that gets a lot of value going here. Bulletproof camera certainly going to make this one difficult to approach in games with gun down. Top-notch gamer inside of mud right now. Winter has a ton of bullets flying overhead and even some connecting on the body. Winter drops back, realizes this round pretty much over. No way I'm going to be able to get onto the site and take a victory there in the 1v3. So a defensive success to start the second half. Really, not a crazy game favoring either side so far. We haven't had any kind of attacker sweep, and we haven't had any, defensive routes either.
I think what's led to that, Reese, is it's mistakes that are resulting in round losses rather than necessarily big brain strategy or the quote, oh no, this map is uber defender sided, I can't win. It is just small mistakes that are being made here and there. Let's go back to the death of Soviet Pi, right? Excellent job to participate in the utility, burning the ADSs, and dealing with the deployable shield, but just because a shield is gone, that doesn't mean that the pesky rat behind it isn't gone. I mean, you can see that Oklahoma was very willing to stand their ground until there was pressured away, and that's just going to be something that KSU kind of has to remember going forward. Just because you commit to utility doesn't mean that you've actually removed those players.
And so for this site in particular, I think the important factors of it, the Mozzie and Alibi. I mean, Alibi is an operator that's seen a little bit more play, not necessarily from me. I think her gun is kind of a little crazy with the recoil, but having a deployable shield on an operator that can frag is really not a combo that you get a lot of the time, right? Like, Jaeger used to have a shield a little while back, and he was a very successful operator for entering, still can be as a roamer. And so having the ability to bring a deployable, to bring, the secondary shotgun as well for Turks that's always helpful. And creating rotation sightline, such an important part about the way that you set up the map, especially on Chalet, I would say.
Well, what do you think about running double shotguns? ACS 12 gang? We're not a fan of
No.
the ACS-12? It's a fun, fully automatic DMR slug shotgun. Mine Haydn, though, seems to have kind of a problem getting opening death, and they fall once again. I think it just comes down to the positioning of KSU. I'm not sure if Mine Haydn was spawn peaked or if that was just kind of the aggression and the push into the building, but with Mine Haydn off the board, that's a set of nades, and again, if you've been watching the Siege Invitational at all, I mean, it has been nothing but artillery barrages with these grenades. I mean, that has been one of the critical factors, especially here on Chalet. The nades from underneath have been incredibly powerful, and with Mine Haydn off the board, I guess you're going to have to leverage it through another bit of utility. The Zofia launcher and the Ash launcher could supplement, but it's not going to have the same explosive might.
Yeah, if there's anything I'm taking away from this game, it's certainly that Mine Haydn has a propensity to get involved in the opening conflict in nearly every round that he can, for better or for worse. Not sure I like the call to go ahead and breaching round above your teammate while they're on the drone. Could have been worse, but Soviet Pie, now after eliminating Zave, seems like a quick hit over towards Solarium is the next move in the offensive here for KENNESAW. Sergeant able to gun down Turks, but Toe on the response to help temper the aggression coming out of KSU, and a Selma smartly used dispatches the shield in Hut for Toe, now facing a mountain of pressure up ahead of him. Just can't manage to find this head of the Ash on the opposite side, and boy, is Toe certainly in trouble. Needs some support from the rest of his team. I like the call, though, to fall back and to concede the master bedroom, play for the retake in the 3-on-3.
I mean, that was really the only call because he was stuck in no man's land. It's a miracle that he's able to get away with it. Toe's relocation. No, please hit the shots through the wall. Entering into the post plan for KSU. It's Winter, though, against 2, and that's going to be the DB&O, but that AK-12 now out of ammo, forced to retreat down the main stairs, but there is a saving grace. Toe's in a position to be rezzed, but also KSU has a wrinkle this round. That's going to be the vertical pre-established.
Oh, brother.
So if Winter sits below, he might be able to find a few kills here and there. Toe going for the defuse, and it's going to be the pressure from underneath. Successful, though. Well done to KSU. A nice attempt, but even better recovery from Oklahoma.
Good competitive effort there from Blizzy and Toe to come back on the site, and that I said it there, Toe, I really like the call. Do not hold out inside Hut. It's such a claustrophobic area. You know, a hard wall on one side, a door in front of you, really easy to get trapped in there, to have a grenade just completely eviscerate that position. Falling back, playing with your teammates, these are the types of things that we're looking for in these collegiate games, because it shows you who has been practicing and who knows how to play together as a unit. And so Oklahoma took a little bit of a stumble towards the second half of our start of the game, but now they've gotten onto the defensive, and they're really starting to separate this series a little bit.
I mean, KSU has to stop the bleeding. They had great rounds here and there. There was a flawless 3 rounds in a row, but now that you find yourself on the attacking stint, one of the more difficult things to do here on Chalet, you don't really have the luxury to make mistakes. Mistakes are going to start to compound. We've seen that be a common theme throughout Chalet today, and I mean, Oklahoma has looked like they have been a dominant team, especially on not their map choice. I mean, this is the KSU map choice. But that being said, we're going to have to see what KSU can do, because they're going to face something that they brought out both on their kitchen defense as well as their master defense. Oyo Shield and Piano.
And I think we get a good opportunity to compare the utility burn here, because we've seen what KENNESAW did on the top floor. It wasn't the best in the world. I don't think it was quite as much of a travesty as what happened on Oklahoma, but now on this side as well, it's a little bit less pressure. It's just the extension. You know, you realize it's probably only going to be 2 players up above. You don't have to worry about some kind of flank coming up as long as you are active to monitor the flank. And a point that we mentioned earlier, I think, becomes more relevant now. It's the big window pressure. We saw Oklahoma, they tried to cross it off on a master offense, and it wasn't really helpful. This time around, it's going to be much more valuable, because this shield is such a common facet of the defensive setup, and the rotate back on this extension, generally a lot, with more frequency. You always see the rotate come back. Top-notch gamer. The Thermite playing the entry role, your sole hard breacher, he went down before he got a chance to use the exothermic, and so now Winter, who's formed up more of an auxiliary hard breaching role, is going to have to use his in a very selective manner.
So with 2 deployable shields upstairs, Kennesaw seems like, wow, this is a ton of utility. I don't know if I necessarily want to push it. So they've begun to relocate their offense, but they've relocated in a way where they're still going to have to deal with the burden of the deployable shields. Maybe not necessarily the one over in Piano, but the one that the Sergeant is upside down repelled looking at. That's a free shield. That can actually be destroyed from the Ash Lancer if it rotates over to the big window and you kind of trade places with Sophia, or you just kind of go for blunt control. That won't be the option, though, because KSU is going to meet a shotgun underneath them. So, the drones, KSU identified that? I don't believe so.
Okay. Not sure what the plan was there for Mine Hayden. Toe is effectively trapped close here on the breach. Still got a feeling, though, that Toe is somehow going to find a way to work this position out just because it's unexpected for somebody to be, close up on this breach. Sergeant, did he try to just rappel in?
Yes,
There's the kill I promised from Toe. And this attack completely taken off the rails. Toe with 3 kills on round for Oklahoma, who now take match point.
You feel that round was almost desperate from the offense of KSU?
I wouldn't say desperate. I think I would describe it as kind of disappointing.
I mean, it was in shambles. I mean, I don't disagree, but like the reason why I use the word desperate was, I mean, we see Zoe rappel big window into Master when they've been staring at a deployable shield the entire time, and they're staring at the shield because, well, there's a defender there. So
that's desperate.
Did they forget that the defender was lurking there? I mean, and we also have to kind of question Mine Hayden's just willy-nilly walk up through grass and get smoked. Toe's ability to perpetually exist on the default plant, if you will, in the Master bomb site. It was just so many little errors that Kennesaw wasn't really able to identify, or break down.
Final round potentially coming up here for Oklahoma. If they can close it out 7-3, I'm sure that will send a message to some of their Southern Conference opponents. Not necessarily bringing out your most comfortable map is going to mean a lot here in the best-of-3 environment. A lot of times we talk about this idea of closing out the series by winning your map selection and then, securing the decider. Almost, thinking as if the opponent's map choice surely is going to be the one that they're comfortable on, they practice, and they are ready to deploy and win. That's not really looking likely here, and, it kind of goes back. This is a bit of a stretch, but, I've seen Kennesaw in a lot of games. I can't say that their map pool is small, but it feels like they've spread themselves a little thin, to be honest. I think they try to be good at a lot of different maps, and it results in them not having, some strong pillars of the pool that they can consistently go to and secure.
I mean, we have seen Chalet enter into one of the staple maps in Collegiate recently. I mean, it's no secret that sometimes Collegiate teams despise new maps. I think it's fair to say it that way. Like, Bank is very rarely played. I think it's only, the Valkyries that play Bank. So, I mean, it's a big possibility that Kennesaw has probably put too many eggs across their map pool basket, and KSU is going for a fast attack. They've cleared out practically the entire north side of the map, and they have not found a single member of Oklahoma State yet. That's because they're all hiding behind deployable shields near the library sector of the map.
Well, we have the opportunity finally to take a second look at this utility extension up above, hoping that Kennesaw State have learned a couple lessons. Oh, Mine Hayden! My word! What a shot there! Zave. That's a big ticket player to shut down, not only for the impact, Zave being the sole player in lobby to be at double digits, but also such an early time for the Wamai to die, and plenty of magnets were still left there on the deployment cycle. It puts Toe in a position of serious pressure. Now he's got to worry about all the angles oncoming, and plus, if you can deal with Turks here inside library as well, it's certainly going to look difficult for Oklahoma to recover on this gaming site.
Mine Hayden going nuclear, now good for 3. This is, well, a critical round for Kennesaw. It is against them that they have match point. So Kennesaw, to the best of their ability, are staying in this round and trying to stay in this series. A flank from Jaeger from behind. It's good for one, but I don't know if that's going to stop the bleeding at all, because KSU has a 1v1 on the, probably a 4v1 on bomb site. Now completely an unoccupied bomb site. Jaeger has to retake their site, essentially going to act as an attacker. But where's the diffuser, and why hasn't it gone down?
Well, there's the answer to your question, but winner is spotted out, and it starts to feel a little bit possible here for Blizzy. Look at the urgency. Look at the movement here from Top Notch Gamer. Soviet Pie has once again collected the case, and I believe he's found an area not susceptible to the vertical pressure of Blizzy. Searching through the vert, still trying to see if he might yet be able to collect another player. But this stock position is one that is bunkered up by the defense, and so will become quite difficult for Blizzy to re-secure on the retake. Drops the hatch, checking all the corners. Top-notch Gamer realizes he must play this safe. On the prone, inside stock, Blizzy checks for it, and there we have it for Top-notch Gamer. Kennesaw State keep it going here on Chalet.
It was 4 rounds in a row for Oklahoma, and now that has been stopped. An excellent round, an imperative round for KSU. And what they did well that round, Reese, was they played together, they participated in utility, and they won very critical gunfights. Let's go back to the opening death of that round. I mean, it was probably on one of the most important operators in the defending lineup of Oklahoma. It was the Wamai and the Wamai Pancakes. Only a few of those defending gadgets were placed yet on the map, because the way Wamai works, Reese, is those magnets, the catchers of projectiles, they grow in his back pocket over the course of the round, and with an early death of Wamai, the full potential Wamai is never actually realized, and, well, it put Oklahoma in a very dangerous position. Plus, once you couple in the fact that Haydn absolutely went nuclear, this might be the resurgence of KSU.
Yeah, and I don't even really want to say that Oklahoma lost to utility there. They just lost to Haydn. How can you account for a Sledge player just collecting a triple kill? Well, the way that I would suggest you do it is by building up a couple crossfires. Those were clearly absent there for Oklahoma, who were a little worried about different areas of pressure, but that's kind of the nature of the game, right? You've got Library, you've got K9, and you've got the Piano area. There are 3 defenders up here, and 3 of them are tasked to the various positions of offense that they need to hold off. And last round, they just couldn't coordinate together, and Haydn was able to isolate those individuals and just sort of do what we know he can do. And it's a couple plaudits there to Blizzy, almost able to make the 1v4. Would have been one of the best moments so far this week. But it's up to the discipline there of Kennesaw to play it safe, to work together, and to eventually stave off the pending clutch.
Oklahoma is going to be making some adjustments this round. They're going to have a larger foothold and a beachhead on the north side of the map. So what we saw in the previous round was KSU just establishing map control almost instantly. Excuse me, and Haydn loses! What? That's just not possible. I mean, the player that heated up in the previous round is now stone cold and dead, and all goes wrong. I mean, Legion has no business winning that gunfight, let alone taking it.
We have had 11 rounds. In 8 of them, Haydn has been opening kill or opening death. Like, Haydn is a super soldier who is just trying to battle everyone on the map, no matter the cost, and there is a big cost to lose your Sledge on the reattempt. The player who enabled this last round to be successful. Look at the rat play by Blizzy. Being tucked in the corner, Red Ping will reveal it. Blizzy on the fall. Back support from Turks, though, is going to slow down and potentially disable the ability to pinch here for Kennesaw. They have not yet been able to progress past what is going on the top floor, so they make the smart, adept call to move in on a horizontal execute. Unfortunately, a Z-Ping will betray their position. Toe nearly lining up for a triple kill, but it's actually Zave doing the dirty work, rounding the corner. Sergeant able to battle it off, but Toe for 2. And Oklahoma have secured Chalet. They will go ahead and snatch the Kennesaw State map pick out of 7-4.
An incredible start to this best-of-3 series. I mean, Oklahoma, they look like the dominant team. They look like the better team, especially on their opponent's map choice. That's quite incredible. Now, there's something that we love to talk about, Reese. It's a Collegiate special, but I don't know if that's necessarily going to be present here today. I think what separated Oklahoma was their ability to be constantly consistent. I want to talk about the point that you mentioned earlier. It was Meinheiden either being the opening death or the opening kill, involved in 8 of those early skirmishes. And with him only winning some of them, I mean, that kind of shows the lack of consistency from KSU, where there were plenty of mistakes being made on the entry.
Oh boy, there were numerous times where just the start of the round, something would go wrong there, and they would not be able to develop any further off of it. And this is true for both teams as well. It wasn't just a Kennesaw State issue, and it wasn't just something that was hampering Oklahoma. Both of these rosters go away with Chalet with a couple things to improve on, and that's what they'll be talking about during this short break. Welcome back to this Week 3 South Conference Showdown here in the R6 Collegiate Championship. My name is Sticula. I'm here alongside Chief. We just got done with a 7-4 result for Oklahoma on Chalet.
That was KSU's map choice. We're now going to be entering over into Oregon, Oklahoma's map choice. I do have some concerns about the consistency element of KSU. We talked about Mine Hayden earlier, involved in 8 opening scuffles, going both 50-50 on opening deaths, opening kills. I think if Mine Hayden is able to leverage more of those opening kills, we might see maybe a transition from kind of the weak KSU offense and defense to something a little bit stronger.
And I would like to see Mine Hayden get traded out a little bit more by his teammates. Certainly felt like that was an area that he kind of lacked in a little bit. And so jumping on to Oregon, a map where it is very easy for me, I don't know for you, Chief, to identify team dynamics and how well-practiced teams are, because Oregon is so simple. We know all the takes. We know all the intricacies. And so, every time we load into this server on this map, we look at the way that the teams, the different rosters structure their takes around one another.
I've never actually materialized that thought, but you're 100% right. We've seen this map a bajillion times, right? So we have seen every take under the sun, from the world's best takes to the world's worst takes to crazy takes with OSHA deployable shields and Spoit doing things that you should never ever do and ever get away with. Oh, well, this is fun. Look who's made it through to the bans. Hello, Thatcher. I can't remember the last time that I've seen a Thatcher in play.
I feel like I had a Thatcher up the other day on a cast that I forgot about, but he's just Thatcher. I just feel like Thatcher is kind of meh. I don't really go crazy about Thatcher. But the Flores ban, I think it's going to make this a little bit more enjoyable from a defensive point of view, because you're not going to have as many Roteros blowing up all of your extensions, right? When you have Flores in play, 4 drones, 4 opportunities to blow up shields, Banshees, Vulcans, Evil Eye Bubbles. I mean, so much that you can destroy with the Flores. And so having him removed, I think it's going to allow us to see maybe a little bit more utility-focused Oregon. I know that seems like kind of a cursed topic, but it's certainly what I believe is on the horizon here.
So I guess, what is the lesser of the evils? I want to talk about the Damar in a second. What is more important, having your deployable shield, exist or get destroyed by a Flores, or have the Thatcher disable the ADSs with my pancakes and Aruni gates and also get destroyed? I mean, you're kind of accomplishing the same goal from different angles. So I guess, what is the lesser of the evils?
Well, I suppose it kind of comes up to which perspective you're looking at it. I think viewers enjoy more so seeing the EMP grenades to get rid of a shield, because you still have to burn, with the grenades as well, right? And it's not a complete, just release of the shield. You got an EMP, you have to time the EMP, and then you have to use your utility as well. There's more that goes into it, which makes for a more complex environment, which generally turns out to be more entertaining.
You know what? I agree with it. I echo that entirely. I mean, we want to see teams, play together as a team, right? If you have to coordinate all of your utility to go in this one deployable shield instead of play NASCAR Simulator 2021 and just kind of drive your R6D drone to the deployable shield, it's cool, but it's not quite what we want to see. Now, I wanted to see an Amaru. I wanted to see Amaru fly through a window, but unfortunately, KSU is going to be, I guess, a bit more sensible and kind of remove the YOLO-ness from their attacking lineup.
Yeah, you would be hard-pressed to find a good VOD of an Amaru being played on Oregon. I have seen it before. The way that we used to get it, not too popular in the current meta, would be to Amaru up the kids' hatch or through the kids' dorm's window, because it's just an element of total surprise, and the defense generally isn't prepared for such a move. Here comes a horizontal sweep from KENNESAW against an equally horizontal setup defense, with a barricade, reinforcements, and all the works inside of the meeting room, with some additional elements in kitchen as well as security.
Only bringing one ranged hard breacher. That's going to be those Ace Selmas. So you're going to have to kind of decide what you want to deal with. You could use a Selma charge to crack open a line of sight to look into meeting room to make sure that Oklahoma doesn't really have the comfortability to exist in this position, this roaming position. Sergeant's going to kind of go with the other spur of that attack. That's going to be opening up T2. And now that you have this hatch looking into meeting room, you can start to force those Oklahoma defenders away. That's going to be how Games loses their life, trying to hightail it down the stairs. But There's still one more player upstairs for Oklahoma, and KSU has currently misthrown them, so that pesky Jaeger might come back to bite the offense very soon.
Yeah, and this looks a little... there's two things pulling and tugging at this round here. One is the opening kill that you get on games, but the other thing is this ambiguity about the other player who is still alive and up on the map, and I almost feel as if they kind of cancel out, because you get the opener, but now you're slowed down because you're worrying about this other element of the defense that is possibly about to come up and totally wreck whatever plan that you have for the rest of this round's duration. Blizzy is really hesitant to make a play. He's not certain about what he wants to do for the entirety. And look at Sergeant. Look at the way that he's constantly bobbling between the hatch and the other angle, knowing that there is a defender left unaccounted for who could come up on the flank. They're going to go for a hatch drop. Turks gets absolutely overwhelmed. Toe able to mow down Mine Hayden, who is so far not this round involved in that opening clash we so expect him to be in. Top-notch gamer for one. Toe's second pickup. Where is Blizzy? About to make a flank down. Toe only needed the one shot on target against top-notch gamer. As soon as the plant comes in from Soviet Pie, it's going to leave KENNESAW in a position of total weakness, one that the Jaeger will be able to upset easily. The res is a smart call, though, to get the Maverick back involved here.
You just have to hope the lineup comes, and there it goes. Top Notch is now finished off. Jaeger's position is known, and the steamroll of KSU is just going to work their way through the bomb site. And since the roamer has been recalled and the only one left to defend the Oklahoma bomb site, well, their position is pretty much known. Sure, you have yellow pings to identify that Soviet Pie is planting, but you're going to have to go through hell and high water. Coming down the main stairs is very difficult, especially once you incorporate that the KSU offense has put themselves in very strong post-plant positions. They're going to be playing off each other. Now, there are a few angles to look, but they're doing a wonderful job of mining their P's and Q's. That pesky Jaeger pops up, and the flank wasn't quite enough. KSU finds a first round attack.
Yeah, it was a novel idea for the Jaeger. However, the execution was just a little bit too sloppy. And I think there is definitely a point to be given to the credit of Kennesaw State there for their, unwillingness to go for the plant, knowing that somebody could come down. You never want to be that one planter who's typing away on the keyboard that leaves your team in a disadvantage with this unaccounted for flank that's on the way that eventually someone is going to have to do something. And honestly, I think Oklahoma would have been better served by having Turks on the site to defend the execute rather than having a flank that comes up with one kill but fails to stop the revive and eventually is just too languished because the plant had already been completed and the 2v1 threat was too much for the Jaeger.
I think what it comes down to is just like the probability of making that play. If Jaeger actually is successful, it's going to be this incredible hero play. It's going to hit the highlight reel. It's going to be on the Twitter timeline as the greatest thing in the world. Or it just falls flat on his face and it's going to be something that we forget about. Again, it's just kind of how you approach risk. And I think that Oklahoma in round one, they're going to just kind of say, you know what, it's round one. We can kind of flirt with the idea of making some hero plays. And if it fails, we'll kind of go back to more traditional. However, traditional doesn't quite seem to summarize what's taking place here in round two, Reese, because we see Castle making a reappearance, but we see a rotation into Code with no deployable shield and a Castle barricade on the door.
Who knows what's planned here? I think there is another plan developing on the Kennesaw State side involving the old woman Amaru, who might be on the way towards flying in from any of a number of given windows. But Sergeant will not start out with the Gara hook as they're looking to clear T3 and see if there's any defenders up here holding this that they're going to have to deal with immediately. And then I would imagine Sergeant probably going to use a secondary breacher tool to get open this wall after, of course, the Maverick removes any utility that would have been there. But look at the defensive lineup. No Mute, no Cade, no Bandit. And so they won't really need any of that utility. Mine Hayden is creeping below the defense. Zaev and Toe get 2 kills out of nowhere to start off the round. That's one of your players in T3. Soviet Pie over on Master Belk. And Turks in the basement. I mean, how spread out can you have the start of this round be?
Whoa. KSU has just dropped 3 attackers almost instantly. I mean, dead before we even see a quarter of round 2 play out. This is perplexing. This is odd, and it's going to be more perplexing if KSU is able to bring this round back. Sure, it's a 4v2, and sure, you have 100 seconds to play with. So I guess KSU can leverage their single drone to gather some information, but that's not going to be enough to identify the 4 defenders of Oklahoma. You can start to open up some of these castle barricades, but you're going to find yourself with an even bigger problem. Deployable shields and Goyo shields in your face. You have a set of nades, but man, it's going to be so difficult to do, especially when runouts continue to take place.
A really complex defense here from Oklahoma, and KENNESAW got kind of overwhelmed by it. Here's Winter, manages to train down Toe, but 3 opponents left. Familiar position for Winter, I suppose. There's been a number of times here where he's been the last one standing for the offense, and he's just had an approach that is too difficult to muster. Though there are 60 seconds, and though maybe Winter, in some distant dimension, might possibly be able to win this, I think the fact that Oklahoma are set up in this, veritable line of defense to keep him away just makes this one too difficult to even think about. Save does miss an opportunity, but on the second go of it, Oklahoma will take the kill to tie the score.
Took an additional 90 seconds to confirm the loss of KSU, but I mean, that round was truly lost in the first 45 seconds. It was definitely a rough going there for KSU. It was the Maverick Torch kind of isolating the Amaru plus with the haphazard challenge. I almost looked like it could have been like a pixel angle underneath the castle barricade to find the second follow-up for Oklahoma. That was a phenomenal round. It was everybody from Oklahoma understanding what their role is, how to slow down the KSU offense, and I think KSU kind of had the confidence from their first basement victory, and they weren't really minding what Oklahoma was doing on the defense.
So, those 2 out of the way. It's a return to the basement here. Oklahoma, what do they need in the second go of things, and how is the Amaru going to do anything here?
I don't think the Amaru is going to do anything. I'm going to be blunt with that. Maybe she'll open up a hatch, but the way that Oklahoma was playing the previous round, they had a full row. So I don't think it's going to be that big of a factor, but what Oklahoma needs to do is they need to reinforce that darn hatch in attic, because that was part of their undoing. When the hatch opened up, Oklahoma couldn't sit in meeting room. So if you're able to reinforce that hatch, you can still roam.
And it's kind of the fundamental of the way that you play this, right? You have the ability to fall back. You have the hatch soft. That way you can drop down. And it really then becomes a question of, does KENNESAW State get firm control of meeting room? Are they able to kick out the roamers? After seeing the way that last dorms round played out, I honestly feel like Oklahoma might have a bit of the upper hand here. I think they really understand all of their defensive assignments and the angles that need to be covered. Like, you look at that dorms round, so many things happened that we couldn't even keep track of it, because everybody did their job, got their kills, defended their positions, and stopped the attack dead in its tracks.
Well, here's the G8 from the Amaru, and they're going to try to replicate the success from their previous basement offense. That's going to be taking control of attic, and it seems like Oklahoma really hasn't addressed my concerns. They have kind of from a different angle, because you're going to have Jaeger playing above in South Pit, but that's not going to be enough because there's no deployable shield. There's practically any cover, so you're going to get smoked, and you can kind of see Jaeger being forced away, being droned back, and yeah, this is not a good position to be in at all.
You should make it out, though. I don't think you have any coverage at bottom white, and you can see, I like the way that Oklahoma, move out of the basement freezer stairs to secure the area as well, making sure that, yes, Blizzy will successfully be able to rotate back down, but they haven't completed the rotation yet. They were still sort of thinking about a push that might have come down from that Z hallway. The rest of the push seems to be oriented from the back stairs, but what significant progress has been made so far? Not a whole lot, but Toe gets a little bit too eager to retake on top, and faces probably the mightiest gun on the offensive side.
Not a good retake. I mean, Oklahoma would be better off trying to keep defending their bomb site. It's almost the same mistake that they made back in round number 1, where we saw a very similar flank take place. Solo wall is going to pay some dividends to the Oklahoma defense, and a hot drop in through E-Box will continue on writing that check in favor of Oklahoma. Winter has no idea where they're being shot from. That's going to be over from Tarts. Winter is going to be recalled back up the stairs. They see this. laser sight, and that's going to be enough to remove Zave, but you now still have Winter forced to find two. You have a Claymore, but Reese, that's not going to help you. Wow, shoot through the wall, darn you. And, well, you dished out some damage, but it's allowed for a new position to be reconfirmed by the other member of the Oklahoma State defense, a deployable shield over in the J bunker, now reoccupied. Winter is still hunting for kills through the wall. The AK-12 not good enough to find those as of now. And the diffuser lost in E-bombs. Mossberg shotgun close on by. Winter good for another kill, but once again, the Oklahoma defense finally sees success here in the basement.
Good to see Blizzy finally presented with a clutch that's doable and find some success there just in the one-on-one to close out the basement round. A little slow, I have to say, for Kennesaw State. Despite the fact that they were able to clear out the top floor and they got a kill off the roam, it was simply just the time element. It took too long in order to facilitate that. And eventually when they got down to the site, it was like, guys, we spent too much time on that. We cannot feasibly come up with an execute that has any sort of rigid structure to it. And on the previous round, I just feel like there was something different, but it was more of the same, right? It was everyone on the defense is playing how the strat calls for, and Kennesaw had no way to go ahead and overturn that.
I just want the hatch reinforced, Reese. That's all I want in life. So if you see, if you're a coach, if you're an analyst, if you're a player, and you're going for a meeting room roam, please, friends, make Chiefcasts happy and reinforce the attic hatch. That's all I want in life. That can be my Christmas present, my birthday present for the year.
A little late for Christmas. It's February.
Well, it could be like a perpetual, Christmas present, right? It can be a Christmas present retrospectively, and then when it actually comes in 2022.
All right. Well, we'll see if Santa does deliver on that subject. Vertical extension is next in the cards. What have Kennesaw State got to show us in terms of clearing this out? It's interesting that they would reinforce out both of the walls. What do you think about making the ability to rotate through there impossible?
This is going to be a tight position over here in South Pit because you're playing it for have multiple playable shields to challenge into attic, to challenge into trophy. If you get pinched, if North Attic wall gets opened up, there's a rotation there. Like, I feel like it's going to be kind of a burial ground and almost like a coffin if Oklahoma State gets identified. To be fair, though, KSU has not really been identifying the holds of the defense, so Oklahoma might be able to get away with it.
All right, well, here in this round, nothing really much to write home about. Well, that's minus a player in T2 from the Oklahoma defense. Toe is sort of creeping up. We have seen a couple moments where Toe gets involved early, but he has been kind of the smart player who only, stays around, only makes a play when he is absolutely certain. And that went a long way towards his 100% opening kill to death rate. Never was the one to go down early. For Kennesaw, again, to be honest, to me, this feels slow. To me, it feels like there is really a lot that they're going to have to do, and they have spent much time for little gain.
Well, here's a perplexing part of the Oklahoma State defense. It's going to be this heavily fortified part of Pit. ADS catches a nade. No, the nade actually hot lands, but it doesn't deal with deployable shield. The second one will be good for it, and that claustrophobic position of Oklahoma has been completely dismantled. But the thing with Oklahoma is they can just kind of relocate. They can continue to use vertical over into the small portion of kids' dorms, so you're going to still have control of that B bomb site. Selma's open up the wall, and this is a new pathing for the offense of KSU. Unfortunately, though, they weren't quite prepared for the MP5K of Toe to remove the forehead of Mine Hayden.
Well, hey, I mentioned Toe only makes the play when he knows it's going to work out, and, well, there you have it. Another opening kill added to the chart of Toe. Kennesaw really having a lot to do and not too many resources to go for it. Zave close with the shotgun. Will the Maverick check close left? It looks like he is sort of prepared for it. Oh, the first shotgun shell, a little offsides, but the second one is good for the kill. Otherwise, Toe continues to stack bodies here in meeting. Sergeant will go ahead and take control of the stage, but he gives away his position with a shot towards Tuck. Toe still defending Split with his life. not wanting to give this one up. Goes Turks, enters down, Sargent in battle. Finally, the player to shut down Toe, but Turks from rear stage. Oklahoma have another defensive pickup.
Reese, let me just read your mind for a second. The word that you describe that meeting room offense from KSU would be slow. I mean,
So slow.
It was
so slow.
molasses.
Unhurried, leisurely, measured, moderate, deliberate, steady, slow moving, slow going.
The
Unrushed.
thesaurus comes out. Thank
It was
you for that
so.
one.
The problem is Kennesaw State do not have a lot of cutoffs going for them, and so they can't really easily establish some checkpoints. That's the takeaway here. Kennesaw have to get the offensive fundamentals down in terms of how can we quicken this up? Because let's be honest, I like the rotation to go for lobby. I think that's the smart move. You could not get much going from the rear stage point of view, so you try to execute through split. If that had just been the call from the get-go, maybe you would have had a little bit more solidity to go ahead and gun down Toe rather than allow him to get a double kill, still remain elusive, and only die once Kennesaw had finally gotten control of the objective.
You know, the way I describe it would be through my favorite terminology, absolutely lost in the sauce. It seemed like KSU had no idea what was going on that round, and, well, the last time that we saw dorms, you and I had no idea what was going down, and KSU was also in a perplexing boat as well as they got shifted off into kind of no man's land.
But it was we didn't know what was going on in a good way. Like,
yeah,
the strategy just had so many layers for Oklahoma. I don't want to say that they were totally lost in the sauce on the previous round. I think they had a couple ideas of what they wanted to do. The execution of those ideas, and just from a unconscious point of view, it looked to me like the communication element was not there for Oklahoma. They did not have everybody on the same page to know this is our next step for what we're trying to do here. Like, there was a real lack of that moment being called. And something else as well that I saw a viewer note. Kennesaw State have not made phenomenal usage of their grenades. I mean, we have not had a huge amount of lethal utility kills, and that's kind of the way the position, the meta is at the moment.
Well, I mean, let's harken back to something we were talking about on Chalet, was the artillery barrage that we've been seeing take place throughout SI. I mean, it has been grenades from underneath. We talked about it on Chalet being a lethal element, and probably the most grenades from underneath have been here on Oregon. And hey, monkey see, monkey do. We talk about it. Speak of the devil. There's a nade from underneath. Unfortunately, though, the dispatcher of the nade, Mine Hayden, falls. Top-notch gamer attempts to go for the trade, but they also find themselves relegated to the death bin. And the KSU offense, while heeding our warnings and heeding our criticism, they still find themselves at the man disadvantage, a -2 mark.
Well, there had been a little period there where Mine Hayden had gotten away from his earlier opening death tendencies, but he is back in that same position. Zave over-aggresses. Surely will get gunned down. Soviet Pie, though, can't make the confirm. And so Zave should theoretically be able to return to cover and have a teammate go ahead and revive him. Maybe. Will it happen eventually? Who knows? Seems like Toe is waiting. They're going to go ahead and reinforce cover. Get Zave from behind the soft wall. Zave's back up. No confirmation for Kennesaw. No ability to regain any type of footing in the man disadvantage. And another missed shot as Winter can't confirm Turks on a sliver of health with one of the hardest hitting rifles on the offense. A battle of full auto versus single fire has yet to come to any kind of a result. Games guns down Sargent. A fourth round surely in sight here from the Oklahoma Sooners. Finally, Turks is put to rest, but 4 kills, and look where we are once again, Chief. It's Winter alive against a majority defense that he has no way to overcome.
It was a change-up in the KSU offense. They started participating in the utility burn. They removed a lot of the Goyo shields, at least one of them from underneath, but that's kind of where the round went haywire for KSU. Just because they knew where those deployable shields were, that's all fine and dandy, though. But what about flank drones? What about cutoff drones? What about drones gathering information to make sure that your also crucial attackers who are destroying that utility are safe, are comfortable? That's on your flank watch to be holding a drone over in Zulu, over into security, or for whatever angle that Oklahoma was taking place. I think what we're seeing is KSU kind of get tunnel visioned on a portion of the map or a bit of utility, and they're like, this is the only thing that I have been bred to do in Rainbow Six Siege. Must pull pin gun grenade, must destroy shield, and that's the only thing that they think about, not thinking about the other variables like covering those crucial attackers breaking down utility.
Last round of the half is upon us. It's down to the basement. We've been over this. It was pretty tough ground, but I think Oklahoma know what they want to do on the basement and are going to be able to close it out. We could talk about the margin here, right? Oklahoma are separated by 3 to KENNESAW, but it's Oklahoma's territory, right? And unfortunately, KSU dropped the ball on their map selection, and so are going to have to suffer through what has been a slow half for them on a map that every college team should know. Oregon, for so many rosters that are just getting started, you go to Oregon first because it's the one, as I mentioned in that point earlier, we all know every intricacy of Oregon and how to play it. So it's the map that you should have theoretically the most time spent practicing on, and you should kind of, for Siege fans out there, know this map by heart by now.
I'm sad. The hatch is not reinforced. But there's a change from Oklahoma defense. It was the fact that there was a roamer temporarily in T2, but they've hightailed it out there. And actually, they've given the offense of KSU a present. They've given them a free rotation into that sector of the map. Now, actually, to be fair, Oklahoma has elected to no longer go for a map roam. They're going for more of an anchor defense, so I guess the hatch being reinforced, at least the vertical one in attic, won't be that big of a deal. But it might be the pressure of games that finds this opening kill. Not yet drone. There's going to be the drone confirming games with a play on the other side of that soft wall. And a green barricade almost is the undoing of games as they're stuck in that stairwell.
So, comes the Surrey Torch, hatch is open. Oh no! The top-notch gamer made a lethal move. He stood up in front, full view of the hatch, and a certified Turk's move to be sitting there in E-Box, staring up through the hatch. And it gets your Maverick. Boy, top-notch gamer not having a record-breaking game for him, at least in a good way. 1-6 so far. He has been slow. Soviet Pie had a couple bright moments on the Ash on our previous map, but the role swap to Iana has not been so favorable. KENNESAW look like they might just try to go ahead and hit through Pillar. Not sure I hate this idea. Look at that highlight in the distance to the middle right of your screen. There is a flank ongoing from Blizzy, creeping through the green hall. I'm waiting to see how this one is going to materialize. Mine hiding. Here he comes. Soviet Pie getting some involvement there. Sergeant. Oh, Blizzy might again find himself in a flank that's just a little bit poorly timed. And as Zave creates some distance, and oh boy, Zave really doing the work here. Mine Hayden goes down. Sergeant in the 1v2. Diffuser in an awkward spot. Rotation. Oh, but Sergeant has made it past. No, he hasn't. Zave able to just finally snatch him. A glimpse at the edge of the double door and a Z ping. Great teamwork there on the intel game.
KSU finds themselves in a very bad position. 5-1 down on the half. To be fair, that was their attacking stint, but KSU currently has a map against them. They ended up losing Chalet 7-4, and now KSU, sure, they're going over to their defense, but there is not a lot of wiggle room. If they end up making a mistake, they find themselves a match point. They make a follow-up mistake, that's going to be the series in favor of Oklahoma. The reason I'm talking about mistakes right now, it looked like Kennesaw State was almost in a position to be able to secure basement like they did back in round 1, but they just had a little bit too much sin during that basement push. They just pushed a little bit too far beyond their means, and Oklahoma was able to recover.
Well, here we have the defense half. It's so hard to recover from a 5-1 half. Just a devastation. And I don't think Oklahoma are going to have really many difficulties on their offense as well. I think they're a team that knows how to play across both sides. I mean, they took the second half of Chalet by storm. If that's any indicator to their understanding of how to play across both sides, this OU roster certainly can do it. But I think the story now, Chief, moves to Kennesaw State and their ability to come back here. Surely they've got a couple strategies here. They're going to show us the Thunderbird in this inaugural second half Thunderbird. Is she going to do a lot to this site?
No, not in particular. I mean, she's joining the party of Nitrocell, so you're going to have kind of this call center going on, but I mean, her utility is sometimes useful. I like having Thunderbird in like ranked games because, you know, if you're doing some shenanigans like Mind Hide It, maybe you take a little bit of damage loss, you can return and heal, but I think on average, the T-Bird gumball machines really don't provide that much. You'd be better off running, I don't know, like a Jaeger or a Mai, or being more effective on your roam.
Wow, you really just iced out Mind Hiding like that.
Hey,
Didn't
man,
even mention
former
his death.
teammate, one of the first people I met when I came over to PC, so I'm going to have to, you know, jab my old teammate from 2 years ago.
Jeez, I guess you didn't teach him too much.
It happens.
There's Zave as well. Sergeant down for the count. Kennesaw facing 2 opening casualties. Nowhere near the way they wanted to begin this second half. Top-notch gamer is trying to make a play. He certainly needs a confidence boost here. Some kind of injection of form to be 1-6. It's never the place you want to be. And Soviet Pie is on a flank. A C4 over the top and Zave somehow survives it. Guess the Maverick had some good footwork. And now here is a sudden announcement. Defender away from the objective.
I mean, you could just kind of YOLO into the site, take a 5v2, but that Nitrocell dispatcher has already been recalled to the bomb site. No, they're actually in T2 or T3. A perplexing decision. We've seen roamers in this position before find no dividends to the roaming defenders because, well, it just puts the defenders on site in a worse position, especially when the offense has a plethora of utilities. Still have 3 sets of nades, a total of 4. Soviet Pie falls. Here's that call center trying to pesky you with that phone, but it's now all just Winter. Against 3, an SMG-11, terrible in this scenario. Good for 1, though, but Toe's able to trade off their fallen comrade. That's match point, series point for Oklahoma.
Maybe he wins it with a different gun, but the SMG-11, and it's got 15 bullets, and as soon as you shoot the first 4 or 5, that gun is just way off target. And Oklahoma, as you say, match point now, 6-1. They look just at home on Oregon here. And it's completely the opposite for Kennesaw State, who look completely out of sorts. And I just don't think Oregon is a map that's feeling good for them. So with 1 round to go, I mean, you would think right now, I would have called a timeout probably the end of the first half for Kennesaw State, but they didn't. They elected to fight on. Maybe the thought is just, let's continue playing. Let's try to, you know, keep up with the momentum round by round. But I would disagree with that thought. I think it's always good to talk to your teammates, communicate, and call a timeout. You know, don't hold on to them forever. You don't need them to pause the clock. This isn't football.
I mean, again, to echo your timeout thought, I mean, just take a breather. You don't even have to talk to your teammates. Maybe you don't want to change your strategies. Maybe you're hard stuck in your strategies. What about just taking a darn breather? You know, you had some very frustrating rounds. It's been 6 losses in a row. Take a deep breath. Maybe, you know, take your hands off your keyboard and just kind of reconfigure your mind for that 60-second technical timeout. Not elected, though, by the defense. They're going to just kind of brute force their way into this basement hold. We're seeing some very default. We're seeing the ADSs over in J Bunker. Most likely going to be a deployable shield, wrap their way on forward. Now, you don't have a traditional deployable shield, so you're going to only have the Goyo shields. That one's already relegated into the pixel position, so the other one probably most likely going to fill that normal spot in J.
So last round potentially on the cards here. We saw when Oklahoma got on a match point earlier. They didn't dawdle. Closed it out. The promising thing from them, I'm sure it was definitely helpful in their earlier games that they played at the start of the season versus, you know, the likes of Tennessee Tech and, as well, the Roadrunners matchup. Roadrunners, you got to be able to close it out against them because they run away from you, and they let the series get a little antsy there.
That's a 1 out of 10er. I can't give you more than that one. That was low effort, my friend. I will say though, both teams came into the series with victories in week 1 and week 2. We were highlighting that this is going to be kind of one of those series where we've had brilliant teams. Both these teams are incredible, but you kind of have to, somebody has to lose, and Dave is the one losing this round. Soviet Pie almost dies through that wall. What are those circular things that drive around the map and gather information? What are those called?
something.
There's something.
Oh,
That something should have been used.
It should have been, because they had no idea. Here's a C4. Nah. Goes up. Nada. Nothing. No kill. Just a wasted piece of utility. KENNESAW with the first. What are we looking at in terms of opening kills here? Do we have that storyline from Chalet? Opening kill equals round victory?
Not to the extent. It's actually been mixed up. So in Chalet, towards the latter stages, it started to get mixed up more, and right now it is also getting a little bit jumbled up, where I think we're just seeing teams be aggressive, and the opening death doesn't always really mean anything in the grand scheme of things. Now the follow-up kill is more important. now you've lost 2 attackers. I think the 6-round winning streak of Oklahoma might be being put to bed.
Unless you have some kind of miracle about to be revealed by Toe in games. Yeah, I agree with that assessment entirely. Soviet Pie on terribly low HP. Here comes a couple smokes. That's probably going to signal the start of the push forward. It is. Here comes the thermite. He drops. Oh boy, though, Mine hiding, potating the shots. And Games is just trapped here. And Soviet Pie for another prone kill. There you go. The streak of rounds is brought to an end. And KENNESAW State finally showing us something for their fans here on Oregon.
That's my new favorite conjugation, potatoing. Or what was it, potating? Potating. I'm going to use that from now on, potating. The art of potatoing. At least the majority of the KENNESAW defense was spot on. No mechanical errors whatsoever. They find those first 2 opening kills crucial to the offense of Oklahoma. And from there, I mean, I think that opening death rocked Oklahoma, because they look like a different team after that. They almost were playing passive. I don't want to say scared, but timid's probably a better word, because they didn't want to make another mistake. They lost their Maverick because Zay was just kind of running around willy-nilly, not realizing that the tower portion of the map has been, well, retaken by the defense. And from there, Oklahoma was just making sure that they weren't going to find themselves in the same position. The hyper caution that they brought out eventually took too much time, wasted time, put them in a dangerous position.
Alrighty, well, another opportunity for KENNESAW State to show us a different look. Dorms. How is this composition, you think, going to fare on Dorms? Because you've got 2 catcher operators. You've also got the Alibi as well. Though I feel like Alibi probably not the most valuable operator here. I think I would have liked to see maybe something with a little bit more intel. You've got a bulletproof camera, sure, for Sergeant, but that's the only quantity of actual intel that you're going to get here. I suppose maybe you could make the statement that the beepers on Soviet Pie is kind of a form of intel, but you know what, Maestro, right? But the Maestro, I would have liked to see Maestro. Okay, Mine hiding. There's a Mine hiding moment for you. He gets the Thatcher. It's a pretty valuable kill here, given Cade and Mute both in this lineup.
I think the reason why Alibi is in the lineup is for the extra deployable shield, but that brings the question, why aren't you running Smoke? Why are you running Winter and the Mute as your primary shotgun? Maybe it's for the Nitrocell, and to be fair, KSU has leaned heavily on the Nitrocells. Back in round 1, we saw 4 of them, in fact, and it seems like an evacuation of the upstairs bomb site. It was Mine Hidden being recalled off that topmost floor, now being chased down the main stairs, as well as the MP5K wielder of Soviet Pie. Mine Hidden falls, and where's Soviet Pie? They were somewhere in that zip code, most likely going to try to get a trade, and there they are, lurking near the death of their fallen comrade.
What's the lore behind Mine Hidden? What's that mean?
You know what? I'm not sure.
I think it's German.
Oh, well, I mean, as German, I don't know German, so I don't know. I'm gonna let you just take that one. But I do know there's nades in front of Sergeant, but that doesn't deter them. Their fighting position is good for 1, but the LMGE takes that kill on back, and here's kind of the mark where you would expect to have that smoke, right? Smoke would be great at wasting time, preventing that LMGE from putting boots on the ground and pit, but the only thing you have to deter the offense is a single nitro.
It's not a lot. It's, well, I guess you do have 2. I mean, you got Winter and Top Notch, but Soviet Pie, here he comes. Okay, Toe is going to drop the hatch in attic and chase after Soviet Pie with a minute left. Can't say I totally approve of that maneuver. especially now that it leaves games. What is games doing with the smoke? Like, what? How does that do anything? There's Toe. He does manage to pursue and gun down the roamer, so that's actually kind of a victory for Toe. It was a gutsy call, and look at the kill difference between Toe and Games. I mean, Toe has got 6 times as many kills as Games, but the frag we know that he shows up when he needs to, and it could be a moment where he is enough to close out the series. Here's Toe. All Games, just as I say it, there he goes, and Oklahoma have done it. 7-2 on their map choice, and a 7-4 pilfering of their opponent's earlier selection of Chalet. Congratulations to the Sooners, who move up to 3-0 here in the South Conference.
That was a advantage for KSU going into that final round. They had man advantage. They removed probably the most important operator in the attacking lineup, Thatcher, but it was the aggression, the strange roam downstairs in the basement. 2 players put in that position. Even more strange attempt to find those roamers, but I questioned it. You questioned it. At the end of the day, it paid off because those roamers were dealt with. I mean, the LMGE was kind of just like a hunting pack of great white sharks. Whenever they smelt blood in the water, a roamer somewhere on by, I mean, they were just addressed and dealt with. And again, let's harken back to the points we were making back on Chalet and then through parts of Oregon. It was just simply consistency on the side of KSU that kind of buried that grave.
Yeah. I think the work on this Oregon map, the defense, the offense, both sides, I think there is plenty to take off here for Kennesaw State. But if there were any of the biggest examples, let's focus in on the offense here. What do you say as the coach or the VOD reviewer of Kennesaw State?
It was the nades, either the lack of nades or the misplacement of nades. And when they were using nades, let's go back to the push in, I think that was going to be round number 5, where we saw nades push into Zulu. And then there was no coverage. There was no help for those nades. There's no flank drones. Nobody was holding angles. So Mine Hayden did a great job of participating in util clear, but they get smoked. Ash got smoked as well, also participating in vertical utility. So it seemed like KSU was unable to really leverage their grenades, and they were unable to leverage or help the people who did have that utility.
And I think one of the points that we did talk about to a length on this series was Mine Hayden. He was involved a lot in the opening fight, which is not ever really a bad thing. I think you mentioned at the end of Chalet, he was about equal, give or take. The second map, was that the same story?
It was biased towards the opening death, unfortunately, by 1 only, but still, like, it's Mine Hayden. I think it's their time playing in the T3 comp ecosystem where mine was always kind of the Ash main, you know, the run and gun style player. Now that they're kind of like flexing over into the Sledge, I think you're kind of seeing some of that previous background experience of being an entry, but also required to do more utility clear. And I think that dichotomy is kind of like messing him up just a bit today.
Yeah, and I think it is certainly something to worry about a little bit, that the fact that he was the one getting involved in all the gunfights, and very rarely did we see like a real situation where Mine Hayden had a teammate there to get his refrag, right? The ability to trade him out for Mine Hayden must improve, I think, coming into their week number 4 matchup. It's 2-1, your record right now. It's not the worst. There's, you know, of course, still a chance to make playoffs, and you just want to take the major lessons. When you lose, there's always something to go back on, to take away from this series.
And it's also important to kind of like realize your strengths, right? I mean, we saw KSU win round 1 on the basement because they did a wonderful job of breaking down that Oklahoma defense. They pushed up into attic, they took control of the attic hatch, and they kind of asphyxiated the players who were roaming in meeting room. Oklahoma had this great defending setup, and it was all broken down from one single hatch. If KSU can continue to like leverage points of the map like that and be able to break down a defense like that, they're going to be a team that will most certainly be able to find themselves in postseason.
All right, well, we have a great thing here. Our interview is ready. We've got Zave from Oklahoma University. Hello, Zave. Long time no see. Good to have you with us here in the interview booth.
Yeah,
all right.
feel
I
good.
have a point. I made sure to take a note of this. How did you feel when you rounded the green hallway corner to see a Goyo prone on the floor of the rear stage?
So okay, our hard support games called that Goya was T2, and so there's this urgent call, yo, go T2, we gotta cut this guy off. They don't say a name or whatever, so I'm out here hauling my ass out there. And I peek for T2, and this guy's just laying down at T1, and I'm like, what? But yeah, that was unfortunate.
Yeah. So, how do you feel the map veto went? Because Chalet, certainly coming into it, it was a little back and forth, I think, but eventually you guys are able to seal it out 7-4, and the second half was kind of cut and dry for you guys.
Um, Chalet used to be a great map for us back in the day, and then we stopped playing it. Um, Lately we've been bringing it back, and so worked out today for us, and that's all we wanted.
All right. Well, week 4 is ahead. You guys currently sit at 3-0. Seems like a pretty promising future for the rest of the regular season. Is there any special plans that you guys have got prepared? And what's the goal for the rest of the season?
Dominate, feel better than Clemps. That's about it. Yeah, play our own game.
All right, Chief.
My friend, I don't want to keep you too long after that incredible series that you played today. Anybody you want to give love to? Shout out your coach, your analyst, your mom, your dad. Anybody you want to give love to?
Shout out to Clemps. He's our hater. He makes us play better. So yeah, that's about it.
Just Clemps.
And thank you to
Just
OU,
Clemps.
of
Well,
course.
Mason
OU.
Clips best. There you go.
Well, I enjoyed that one, Chief. It was a good series all around, but that wraps us up for tonight. I mean, what were your major takeaways? What are you thinking about today?
Honestly, consistency is going to be the name of the game here in R6CC. I mean, that's what it's going to come down to. We saw teams, particularly KSU, make mistakes, and mistakes was really the thing that lost KSU the game in the series today. I mean, sure, Oklahoma had some stumblings. They stumbled a bit on Chalet. They've mentioned that it used to be a stronghold of theirs, but they have ceased playing it at least as much as they used to. And again, some of those mistakes that Oklahoma made, yeah, it was their downfall, but not to the extent that it was of KSU. So again, just to reiterate, it's going to be those small little details and small little mistakes will compound over the course of the round and put you in a very bad spot.
All right, well, ladies and gentlemen, make sure to mark your calendars because the R6 Collegiate Championship will be back next Saturday. Thank you, Chief, for joining me tonight. I've been Sticula, our producer, Tango Mango Down, and our observer, Nova. We'll see you next time here on the R6 Collegiate Championship.